The story begins at the final of the Jiu-Jitsu championship. We see two fighters on the mat. It's the last minute of the match. Our protagonist is in a tough position, sweating a lot. The scoreboard shows a 5-point difference. He only needs to hold on 15 more seconds. His opponent tries a lock, applying a lot of pressure. The boy endures the pain, holding on with all his strength. With only 10 seconds left, the pain is almost unbearable. Finally, time runs out. He held on until the end and got the victory. On the podium, he receives the gold medal, becoming the world champion. But at the moment he reached his dream, it seems he also lost it. Sometime later, we see the champion working at a construction site. A co-worker calls him to go for a drink, but he says he needs to go home early. His brother-in-law insists, saying he'll talk to Ciola for him. The protagonist gives in and asks if he's going to pay the bill. Walking together, his friend promises to treat him when his niece gets into college. The MC replies that the girl is barely starting elementary school. Later, at a bar, they toast with some drinks. His friend thanks him for everything, but the MC tells him not to get sentimental. He confesses life is easier now than when he competed. Back then, he could barely afford formula milk with his coach's salary. The friend also thanks him for helping him get his excavator license and a job. Now, he can take his family out to dinner at least once a week. Meanwhile, the protagonist arrives home. His little daughter, Mina, runs to greet him with open arms. He lifts her up and thinks he's so happy he'd live this life all over again. Playing, his daughter applies a flying armbar on him. He pretends to tap out, telling her he can't keep up anymore. After playing, the three of them snuggle in bed. The father wishes this ordinary happy day could last forever. Suddenly, his daughter's voice calls him to wake up. Half asleep, he tells her to sleep a little more and they'll play later. The girl insists, asking how he can say that in this situation. When the protagonist opens his eyes, he sees a weird, horrible bug behind his daughter. Quickly, he puts his hand on the creature's face to protect Mina. Then he grabs a piece of wood from the floor. Using it as a weapon, he hits the creature to drive it away. Looking at a broken mirror, he sees his reflection transformed into a monster. The mirror shatters and more creatures enter the room. One of them attacks him, but he manages to pin it to the ground with a lock. He wonders if these things can even pass out. Putting all his strength into it, he rips the head from its body. He's left in shock, wondering if he just took someone's life. But the head on the floor keeps moving, and he realizes it wasn't human. While comforting his daughter, he wonders where they are. He remembers nothing about how they got to that mall. Peeking out, he sees the place full of those creatures. One of the bugs, wearing only shorts, is dancing to imaginary music. The MC runs toward it and knocks it out with a single blow. Carrying his daughter, he flees while a horde of infected chases them. Running down a hallway, he finds an exit door. Quickly, he closes it and blocks it with a couch. To ease the tension a little, they see a soldier sitting there with a big rifle. While getting acquainted, Songwon explains his situation, how he has no memory of the events that led to this zombie apocalypse. The soldier sums up the situation. Almost 80% of humanity has turned into flesh-eating monsters. Songwon insists the soldier let him use a transmission device. He's worried about his wife and wants to contact her. Of course, it's not like the soldier can just use his phone to call someone. They need satellite communication equipment, so they must go up to the top floor. It's the only way to reach the military base. Songwon asks the soldier to use the satellite communication device just once, to make sure his wife is okay. The soldier agrees, but not before making our guy beg intentionally. When they get to the rooftop, Songwon puts his ear against the door to check if there are zombies on the other side. However, the soldier isn't afraid. Even if there are zombies, he's got a damn AK-47. He insists Songwon open the door, pointing to his injured leg, which limits his mobility. While our guy is falling for this idiot's words, the girl feels something's off. This thinking soldier doesn't seem trustworthy, but her father tells her to hide behind the soldier, despite her protests. Then he opens the door slightly and looks, only to find a whole group of zombies having a party on the rooftop. That treacherous soldier finally reveals his true intentions by fatally shooting our guy in the stomach. The bastard has the audacity to smile after shooting an unarmed civilian. Songwon lunges at him before he can fire a second time. He executes a Jiu-Jitsu move with great skill and pins him instantly. But all that ninja and karate stuff goes out the window when your opponent's holding a gun, and doesn't hesitate to shoot you again in the leg. Our guy loses control, giving the bastard the perfect chance to get to safety. And so, the mighty international Jiu-Jitsu champion is reduced to a pathetic mess, taken down by a scrawny underfed man. After taking several shots, Songwon falls. That bastard grabs the girl and locks him on the other side of the door. Zombies begin surrounding our guy from all directions. From the other side, the soldier reveals the twisted reason for his betrayal. For some unknown reason, children are immune to the virus affecting everyone else. And because of that, children sell for ridiculously high prices on the black market. Basically, humans are no better than these damn monsters in this era. Or maybe humans had always been the real monsters. Those words hit hard, especially as our guy is about to be massacred by the zombies. His death isn't just a tragedy, it's a calculated murder. The murder of a Jiu-Jitsu champion. Eventually, the zombies attack him en masse. And just when it seems all is lost, he miraculously emerges from the pile, pushing those agile creatures aside. Not only that, he literally cuts those bastards with a single move of his hand. He walks toward the edge of the roof, eyes fixed on the bastard who took his precious daughter. Something in him has changed forever. Possessing the Kakugan eye of Ken Kaneki, from Tokyo Ghoul, this man stares at the freak who kidnapped his daughter. The moment he sees his beloved daughter, he removes all his human limits by jumping off the edge. Like a father who'd do anything for his child, he leaps from above. The soldiers below are confused, unable to tell if the falling figures are infected or not. The creepy soldier is shocked as his friend comments how strange it is to see an infected trying to kill itself. But they don't know it's not a bird nor a plane. It's it's a man. Someone drives his arms into the nearby walls, stopping his momentum as much as he can with his superhuman strength. Despite doing everything he could, the fall is hard and makes a loud crash. For once, I'm glad to see a little physics in the story. Anyway, with a fall like that, the creepy soldier and the ugly infected begin to think he couldn't have survived. But just a moment later, their faces fill with amazement. Hilariously, if they can look to the bottom, the other soldier is being bitten by a zombie, and still doesn't care. Let's go back to the reason for their focus and astonishment. It's our guy running at an immense speed while shouting his daughter's name. The instant the disgusting soldier hears him, he realizes he messed with the wrong father. Someone keeps moving forward unstoppable. Meanwhile, the soldier tries to use the little aim he has with his weapon to shoot the approaching zombie. But honestly, the guy's got aim like a stormtrooper, and apparently can't hit a man running in a straight line. Not even once. The guy thinks he'll land at least one shot, but it's useless, and even his friend insults him for having such awful aim that he shouldn't even try. Instead, another soldier gets the task of shooting the zombie. The man aims, and I guess they went from stormtrooper aim to aimbot aim, because he fires just once and brutally connects with Songwon's shin. Unfortunately, being shot in such a vulnerable area slows his speed, but his persistence as a father is still too strong. At this point, even the soldiers start to wonder if there's any infected more determined and stubborn than this one. It's the first time they've experienced something like this. But every time Mina screams her father's name, Songwon charges forward in fury, ignoring his pain just to reach his daughter. While the corporal keeps Mina restrained, the other soldier takes aim again. Only this time he turns into John Wick and lands a critical shot to the head. The force of the impact makes Songwon's head snap back. But make no mistake, he's not going to hell until he makes sure his daughter is safe. Realizing that bullets are practically useless against this zombie, the soldiers decide to throw a grenade, knowing it'll deal significant damage. Songwon runs so fast he doesn't care about the incoming grenade, which explodes right in front of his face, raising a cloud of explosive smoke. For Mina, this is the worst scene imaginable, watching her father almost die before her eyes while she reaches out helplessly. She cries silently as the vehicle drives away. The scene cuts to Songwon, clearly gravely wounded, his right arm completely torn off and his abdomen bleeding profusely. But even in his thoughts of agony, the only thing he can think about is his daughter. It doesn't take long for a group of infected to appear, surrounding his shattered body, waiting to finish what's left of him. They look at him as their prey while Songwon's persistent body trembles under stress. But note, this isn't fear, it's evolution. Remember the lost arm? Our guy's body simply gives him a new one after losing the previous. Basically, he just got Piccolo-style regeneration from Dragon Ball Z. The infected are stunned to see his recovery state as Songwon clenches his fist. The scene shifts to a tender moment between the loving father and his daughter, remembering he promised Mina he'd play with her. Even his daughter knew her dad never broke his word. The dream sequence ends when Songwon regains consciousness. His body is intact as if nothing happened. He trembles, confused, wondering what happened, looking at his arms, now completely healthy. Then he turns to the man next to him, who asks if Songwon is back to normal. This man understands our guy suffered immense pain at the hands of humans, so he brought him to his place to help him recover. Although the man appears infected, he can speak and assures someone there's nothing to worry about. They're on a raft, and the man hopes to catch some fish, even inviting our guy to join. Of course, someone hesitates and distrusts him, grabbing the infected man's clothes. The old man takes it as a sign of aggression and thinks maybe someone's lost his mind and wants to attack him. Thanks to our guy's incredible Jiu-Jitsu background, he easily puts the man in an arm lock, forcing him into extreme pain. Hilariously, someone doesn't stop there. He gets up again and stomps the infected, the same one who literally helped him. Finally, someone realizes this infected can talk. But the story doesn't end there. It's not just that he can talk, but our guy can now understand others of his kind. By the way, remember they said they'd go fishing? Turns out it's even funnier, because in the next scene they're in a swimming pool. Basically, this old guy is crazy. Anyway, someone wastes no time and explains everything to him. The man is shocked to learn our guy can keep all his memories from before being infected. The worried father doesn't want to waste more time and begs for directions to the nearest military base. The good thing is it's easy to find. The nearby intersection shows the way. Someone is eternally grateful and apologizes for wrecking the old man's arm. This makes the old man emphasize a critical misunderstanding from someone's perspective. None of the other infected can regenerate as efficiently as he does. Instead, they're trapped forever in their miserable state even after being torn apart. And that's sad because our guy turned this man's arm into a simple noodle. He looks away in guilt as the old man explains that someone might be the first person to retain his human memories. Because none of the infected are like that. Although they once walked the line of humanity, that's no longer the case. They've surpassed it. The old man points out that not only does someone have an incredibly fast regeneration factor, but he also retains his previous memories, meaning he's literally built different. Without wasting time, someone feels the urgency to leave for his daughter's sake. Just mentioning his daughter makes the infected question something. Is someone really infected? After all, if he were human, it'd be hard to trust him, because the infected naturally see humans as a threat. The old man can't help him simply because he doesn't want to kill more of his own kind, meaning other infected. However, the fact that someone tried to defeat him shows one thing. Our guy is more human than zombie. Realizing he's completely alone in this, someone sits and asks for the way forward. But the old man makes one last offer, tempting the guy to forget his daughter's safety and just spend his days with the rest. Without hesitation, the man rejects such an offer. Once again, the old man analyzes that someone's human empathy and his need to protect his daughter might be the cause of his own downfall and could lead to the destruction of the infected. Unfortunately, his answer doesn't please the old man, who deems him too dangerous and declares someone must be eliminated immediately. But our guy is quick. He decides arguing is useless and dives into the water, trusting he can swim to the other side. But here's the problem. The moment he surfaces, someone is stunned. All this time, the water was full of other infected waiting to attack. Now that they have the clear signal, they plan to kill him as they surround him. Someone scans his surroundings, unaware one of the infected is slowly approaching from behind. The creature lunges to grab him, and actually manages to knock him down. The old man laments that someone made a terrible choice in the end, refusing to support his kind and sealing his own doom. But then he's shocked to see the outcome. Our guy isn't in danger. He is the danger. Remember that coward who attacked him? Yeah, that guy's going to regret his head still attached to his body as someone channels all his love for his daughter. Someone makes his message clear as he crushes the creature's head. If anyone dares stand in his way to save his daughter, he'll kill them all. The ugly bastards move in on the handsome dad as he literally crushes one of their own brains. The infected are so intimidated by his gaze that his mere presence forces them to back off and go back to eating fish in the pool. With those enemies neutralized, someone turns to the square-headed old man, who at first is disappointed, but starts laughing nervously, finding the situation amusing. Our guy is even willing to rip off his other arm if needed to balance things out. The old man emphasizes that if someone rushes, he might fail to save his daughter. Hilariously, it turns out our guy stole the old man's clothes as punishment, and is even using one of the infected as a chair. He really made them all his without even trying. The infected parade before someone as he learns from the old man that it's not a good idea to head straight to the military base. Apparently, there's a dangerous figure there that could cause trouble. As they talk, the zombies face their own existential anguish, but even so they don't want to end up like their captain's broken arm. Meanwhile, someone asks more about this dangerous figure. A particularly brave but stupid zombie tries to take him by surprise by running straight at him. Songwon doesn't even flinch. He takes it down with a kick, stomps it, and wonders if he should up the punishment to something even more humiliating than a water dance. He also thinks it's absurd for this zombie to run at him like that, as if it would make any difference. The captain explains not all infected have the same level of intelligence. Basically, they're stupid. However, some, like the captain, can follow orders with perfect precision, but most only follow their instincts and hunger. These guys don't even think and attack their own. They're dumber than a goldfish. Moreover, the captain suspects the infected are attracted to Songwon, probably because of his human scent. Our guy doesn't answer and just stares at the old man, who trembles in fear and pleads to be trusted once again. Back to the main topic of their conversation. The old man wants to give him an alternate route instead of attacking the base directly. But Songwon doesn't care and leaves with a chilling warning. Anyone who gets in his way to his daughter will be executed mercilessly by him. Leaving the base, he encounters a group of infected. But these don't even look for a fight, because Songwon makes them back off basically by telling them to get lost. On his way, he comes across something strange, a giant gorilla. An abnormal one, devouring human limbs like they're a delicacy. Songwon remembers the old man's words. Remember he said there was someone dangerous? Apparently it's this damn gorilla. The creature tries to communicate, warning Songwon not to invade its territory. Being diplomatic, our guy responds with a palm strike to the gorilla's face, knocking it to the ground. Songwon politely expresses a "get lost" in his own way. In the next scene, we see a group of infected having a dance party in a club. They're really different from other zombies for having so much fun. One goes crazy and starts moving out of control. There are zombies dancing sensually and enjoying every second. You definitely didn't expect this from a zombie apocalypse story, right? The party ends literally when the furious gorilla throws Songwon against the walls, crushing the infected in his path. Our guy is getting a real beating. When he hits the wall, he takes a blow that knocks out all his perfect teeth. The gorilla tries to smash his face in the next attack. Meanwhile, Songwon remembers a blog he read about how to defeat a wild animal. That's where he learned to apply Jiu-Jitsu techniques against a creature the size of a gorilla, using his body strategically and aiming for a rear choke. But that doesn't work. Songwon takes hits all over. The wall gets destroyed as the creature beats him brutally. With every hit, Songwon recalls the old man's words. He has an almost divine healing factor, unlike the others. The gorilla slams him to the ground, but this is exactly the position the ex-Jiu-Jitsu champion was looking for. Knowing the rest of the infected are vulnerable and can't regenerate the same way, Songwon targets the creature's arm, aware that once it's broken, it won't be a problem again. With what strength he has left, he puts everything into one decisive move, and instead of just breaking the gorilla's arm, he cuts it straight off at the bone. The arm flies off as the gorilla reels in anguish and shock, unable to comprehend what just happened. A victorious Songwon stands over its defeated state, looking at the beast, which growls heavily as if saying it wants to fight even more. But it's not like our guy is afraid of round 2. He gets ready to stretch and deal more damage. Then his eyes lock onto something. 2 small children shriek and run to protect their guardian. They hug the gorilla, and the scene triggers an emotional reaction in Songwon. See, just like with this gorilla, he remembers his true mission, to protect his family. So instead of killing the creature, he rushes back at full speed. In the next scene, he's already reached the military base, making sure everything will be fine as long as he can find his daughter. At first glance, there are 2 guards outside, and it's plausible there's one inside. This means the smartest approach would be to slip in undetected. Our creative Jiu-Jitsu master throws an infected creature over the barbed wire, and using its body as an anchor, Songwon slides safely inside. The soldiers start looking for the source of the noise. While they're distracted watching the infected on the wire, our guy takes the chance to apply a stealth chokehold, threatening to end the man's life if he doesn't reveal information about Lee Byung-go. The soldier, however, resists, refusing to give in and trying to fire his weapon. At first, Songwon reminds him the bullet will never hit him, but the soldier shoots anyway, which is a big problem since the gunfire could attract the attention of the other soldiers. Letting him go, Songwon waits for his answer. The stubborn soldier insults him, but the only thing running through the father's mind right now is the beloved sight of his beautiful daughter and his precious wife. As I said, the shot draws the soldiers, who quickly group up to capture the infected immediately. But what they don't know is that at that moment Songwon's blood boils with fury. He channels his rage toward the miserable people who took the 2 people he loves most. While these soldiers tremble in fear at incredible speed, someone manages to grab one of them and smash his face into the ground. He squeezes the guy's neck so hard his eyes look about to pop out of their sockets. But I guess this is just the average wet dream of the fangirls who follow this kind of story. Can't say the same for the soldier. He's having a bad time while a demon stares at him, demanding they release his daughter immediately. With the soldier pinned, someone roars his daughter's name. At that moment, one of the soldiers quickly approaches and points a weapon at him, questioning why the man is recklessly looking for his daughter in that place. Our guy calmly stands up and explains that the man he just took down kidnapped his daughter and brought her there. Naturally, he's there to get back what he lost. From the look in his right eye, the soldier asks worriedly if someone is still human. To that, our guy recalls the same question the old captain of the infected asked him: what is he if he's neither one nor the other? Someone no longer seeks an answer and simply maintains his demand to get his daughter back. Once again, the soldier doesn't trust and has no reason to believe the man's words. With his temper at the limit, someone remembers the last exhausting words of the disgusting one who threatened to sell his daughter for money. To the captain, none of this makes sense, and he's left perplexed. The miserable criminal trembles in fear. While someone gives proof of his words asking the captain to check his ID badge, it's not there specifically because he removed it during the fight. The soldier frantically stands to take his place near the commander, reminding him this man attacked and infiltrated the base. He quickly tries to fire his weapon, only to realize it doesn't work. The commander takes it from him. Disappointed that a sergeant, of all people, is useless with his own weapon, the guy tried to shoot without even noticing the safety was on. Not only that, the fact this reckless idiot tried to open fire in a field full of allies shows his stupidity. Meanwhile, a private quickly reports to the commander about Lee Bango's situation. They saw him return with a small girl, something someone immediately confirms, begging to see his daughter as his emotions overwhelm him. The soldier asks him to calm down, explaining that the fraudulent sergeant had falsely reported he'd take the girl to her family. Hearing this, someone roars in denial, informing the soldiers he is the father. The soldier offers a solution, believing going with the sergeant would be wise since he'll take him to his daughter. But then, the other soldier completely loses it, and orders his troops to kill the man immediately. Turning his attention to the miserable one, someone gets ready to tear him apart. The commander intervenes, reminding him they're trying to help him by listening, because if he doesn't cooperate, he'll only delay the reunion with his daughter. Also, the commander begins to understand the situation and realizes what must be done. He immediately summons the men who followed the sergeant on the day's operation. The two soldiers who step forward quickly testify that someone's words are true, and they discover and rescue a girl from the tent, without knowing the full background of what happened. Not even the commander had received this report, since apparently the lousy sergeant wanted to handle everything on his own without returning the girl to the base. But that's not all. It seems the sergeant has done the same several times without reporting anything to the base. Hearing this disgusting piece of trash acts like he was fulfilling his duty by being proactive. However, the commander quickly humiliates him by asking why he refused to inform the base. The sergeant completely explodes emotionally, acting this time like someone is conspiring to accuse his superior. While he complains, someone does everyone a favor by landing a straight punch to his mouth, knocking him to the ground and ending his bragging. With the guy completely knocked out, the scene cuts to our guy being subjected to a full-body inspection. Looking more muscular than ever, the soldier admires someone's unique build for not having a single wound. The soldier apologizes for going to such an extreme but explains they have no choice but to run full inspections to make sure there are no bites. Someone is also given a patch to cover his strange eye temporarily. Though he rejects it at first, claiming his eye works perfectly, the soldier explains that if he shows it, someone might try to attack him. Surprisingly, no one has done so yet. Understanding where this is going, our guy accepts and keeps walking with the soldier. He learns that the search operation for his daughter will start soon, right after Lee Byung-go's trial. Although someone distrusts Sumin for being involved with the sergeant, he considers saving his daughter a higher priority. Just as he asks about the details of the trial, they both hear gunfire and quickly move away from the windows. Sumin realizes that apparently Lee Byung-go has gone crazy and is throwing grenades to kill everyone. This is strange because the sergeant should be knocked out in the infirmary, but then he gets it. Sumin sees a vehicle speeding away from the base. Our guy wastes no time and jumps out the window, landing safely as he sees the sergeant escaping. At full speed, someone chases the man, knowing this time he can't lose his daughter. One of the soldiers quickly catches up thanks to his motorcycle. Sumin tells him to stay at the base, But instead of obeying, our guy hops on the bike, begging Sumin to speed up without looking back. Sumin emphasizes that the bike will slow down with 2 people, but Songwon is determined to get involved in this mission. The radio transmits an official message from the commander. Sumin explains the situation and how he's chasing Lee Byung-go. Just as the commander gives an order, the transmission starts to fail. The signal turns to static while Sumin follows the instructions and continues the pursuit to stop the sergeant. Getting closer and closer, Sumin asks Songwon to shoot the car's tires using the rifle on his back. Songwon aims but misses the first shot due to his inexperience, though he assures he won't miss the second time. Instead of listening to the guy, the soldier stops the bike and aims to shoot himself. Sadly, he also misses, stubbornly refusing to give Songwon the chance to fire. Finally, the soldier lands his first shot on the vehicle's tire, making it skid on the curve. Thanks to this, they get back on the bike to continue the chase. They take a sharp left turn to follow the target, but just as they're about to catch him, the bastard is already waiting with a grenade in hand. The guy throws the grenade, but Sumin's godlike aim manages to stop it midair, saving his life. With the sergeant out of options, he's pathetically defenseless as our boy tries to lunge at him to finish him off. But in a shocking twist, a van hits the guy, delaying his fate. Once again, the sergeant's accomplices get out of the car to save him. Apparently, they're involved in the scandal with the kids. Unfortunately, Sumin realizes there are too many of them to face alone. He weighs his strategy. He could fire warning shots and wait for reinforcements, or prioritize his own action. The soldier faces reality, knowing no reinforcements will come and that Songwon must have been seriously injured just moments ago. His best option now is to shoot the van's tires and then find a place to hide. That's exactly what he does, waiting behind his bike for the right opportunity. His plan is perfect in theory, except he forgot one critical factor: the zombies. By making so much noise, he's attracted a huge group right in front of him. The scene briefly flashes back to when the soldiers were informed about the infected's weak points. Handling zombie hordes isn't a game. They have to be smart and damage the brain. Hitting there stops movement, and if they destroy the nerves in the cervical spine, the infected dies completely. The only way to escape a horde of zombies is through a suicidal attempt with a grenade. That's how desperate the situation is for the loyal soldier. Clutching his grenade, Sumin trembles as he keeps up his brave act. He wants to set off the explosion just as the zombies are most concentrated, hoping Songwon will handle the problem. But to his surprise, for some reason, the infected quickly transform into ballerinas. Sumin is genuinely stunned and wonders what the hell is happening. He thinks he's gone crazy from the fear of death, because he can't believe he's seeing these guys dancing instead of eating his brain. Even more surprising, the undead seem to show expressions, but of what exactly? It's like they're desperately trying to please someone or something. It's not a ritual but an act born of literal fear of death. The infected are genuinely terrified and would rather stay intact than be torn apart. And yes, intact is literal. Even as they dance frantically, Sumin finally spots the captain of the infected in the distance. He's come for our boy Songwon, who rises slowly, angrier than before. The captain sees his bloodthirsty gaze and lowers his head in a show of respect to his superior. Meanwhile, Sumin is confused, not understanding why the infected are suddenly retreating. Instead of explaining anything, Songwon takes back his eye patch and asks about the place. The soldier starts to wonder if this guy has lost his memory or what, so he gives him a rundown of what happened with Lee Byung-go. Apparently, this revelation triggers intense pain in Songwon's mind. All his memories come rushing back as he recalls the chase after the lunatic. They were so close to catching him. On the other hand, Sumin spots a figure in the distance. But it's not an infected, it's a woman and supposedly her daughter, begging to be saved. Moving closer, Songwon learns from the woman that they were attacked by a horde of infected. They beg to be taken to a safe shelter. But of course, our boy can't just do that because of his own mission. The woman pleads, pointing out that she and the girl won't survive on their own. Accepting the situation, our boy puts their needs before his own and instructs Sumin to take them back to the shelter while he goes alone to find his daughter. It's a dangerous plan, because even Sumin knows it won't be easy. That's why Songwon asks for all possible information about the van he saw so he can track it. Sumin gives him exact details of the model and highlights that all the men had centipede tattoos. Again, he emphasizes the dangers of traveling alone. Suddenly, the woman intervenes and asks if those same men captured his daughter. When Songwon confirms it, she reveals in horror that her own daughter was also kidnapped by the same people. Realizing she might have leads, he asks for any information that could help track them. The woman also points out that Mina might actually be in the shelter house. Apparently, the purpose of buying and trafficking kids is to rescue them later. In fact, she mentions that only a few were bought just days ago. Someone breaks down and asks about his daughter, describing her pigtails and pink hoodie as an example. Unfortunately, the woman has no idea, since the kids often swap clothes in the shelter. She suggests they first check the shelter and then continue the mission. Someone agrees with the suggestion, though Samin emphasizes that he's taking a risk by trusting a stranger's words. However, the risk matters very little compared to his daughter's safety, even if it costs him great danger. So the group decides to head to the shelter together, arriving accompanied by the woman who introduces them. Apparently, there are some entry procedures that must be followed. Well, it's the same as last time, being stripped. Amusingly, it seems someone is already getting used to this. The inspector is impressed by our boy's physique. At first, someone takes it as a compliment for being unharmed. But when he sees the old man's confusion, he realizes he's actually impressed by his 16 inches of venom. The inspector wants to remove someone's eye patch, but our boy grabs his hand, believing they've already complied with the instructions. Unfortunately, this could be a problem for Samin, because if he reveals his eye, it will raise suspicion. Someone argues he already went through the body check, so there shouldn't be any more doubts. The guy is so crazy he puts a gun to Samin's head, insisting on checking the patch no matter what. But the old man forgets he's dealing with two young men, especially when one is a Jiu-Jitsu master. Someone takes him down to the floor, leaving him in a position where he can't threaten anyone anymore. The old man is speechless, and wonders what's going on. Someone explains he's just reacting generously to having a gun pointed at him. In fact, if he hadn't cushioned the fall at the end, his skull would have been smashed. While this fight happens, the other followers come out to stop the aggressors. The old man emphasizes there won't be problems as long as someone removes the patch. His men threaten to shoot him if he doesn't obey. Again, they remind him the only way out is to remove the patch. Now, with 3 old men pointing shotguns at him, someone realizes he could use his divine regeneration to subdue them all. But the problem is he'd expose himself as infected, and he doesn't want that. So he waits, nervous, for a miracle. Finally, the miracle comes in the form of the woman who brought them. She reminds the old men that this man saved her life. The captain of the old men insists he remove the bandage. In the end, our boy decides to comply and takes it off, but with a twist. He does take it off, but doesn't open his eyes, claiming he lost it in an accident. That's very clever, and he even acts like it's his insecurity, which is why he defended it so fiercely. The old man is disappointed because all of this could have been avoided if he'd said so from the start. In any case, someone only wants to see Mina. But the old man gets angry and says the kids are sleeping and must not be disturbed. With him out of the picture, the woman apologizes on his behalf, explaining the old man is stubborn and likes to do things his way. Someone understands he could have handled the situation better too. Following the instructions, he decides to wait until morning to check the shelter. In the next scene, both Samin and our boy are placed in their room. The soldier recommends taking turns every 2 hours to keep watch, believing it's unwise to trust strangers. It's better to be cautious just in case. Someone agrees and tells the soldier to try to sleep first, since he's not sleepy. Samin accepts and asks to be woken up in 2 hours. Some time passes and our protagonist realizes something. He doesn't feel the need to sleep, not even blink. At first, it seems like stress, but then he thinks it must be connected to his powers. Bored, someone decides to take a walk and quickly remembers the night watch shift. To be cautious, he draws on Samin's eyelids so it looks like he's still awake. Anyway, he goes out on his own and sees the same little girl from before. She throws him the ball, asking him to toss it back. Though he understands the little one's feelings, someone thinks it's better the girl sleeps. But the little one is stubborn and knows he's leaving tomorrow. Giving in to his weakness for children, our dear protagonist agrees to play with her for 10 minutes. While they play, he learns the 7-year-old girl's name, Maya. She's the same age as Mina, making someone wonder if someday the 3 should play together. The girl is very excited to share some playtime, and their conversation continues for 10 minutes. Though Mayam wants to keep playing, the responsible adult emphasizes that sleep is more important. He picks her up and decides to take her back to her mother. To someone's surprise, the woman isn't actually Mayam's mother. Thinking about it, she never treated her like her own daughter in front of him, so it makes sense Mayang is one of the rescued girls. The poor girl begs someone for the chance to sleep with him. Seeing her, she reminds him of his own daughter, and wants to share that affection. Her words are heartbreaking and awaken a flood of memories in Songwon's mind. Do you remember the night they slept together? Mina was playing and said the exact same thing. She was soon to become an elementary school student, yet she still wanted to sleep next to her father. Her adorable, love-filled face reminds him so much of Mina that Songwon accepts Myung's request. In the next scene, both appear sleeping in his bed. The next morning, it's breakfast time. The meal is plentiful, and the woman takes care of serving it. Sumin notices that these people grow their own vegetables and even gather resources from the mountains. Thanks to the elders, they've made it this far. In fact, most of the group are elderly. The worrying part is what they would do in a crisis, since they're very fragile. As they sit down to eat, the soldier reveals that there will soon be a head count, and they're likely to find Mina among them. Songwon fills with hope and agrees. Just as he's about to thank Sumin for his efforts, a tragedy occurs. Sumin's face falls onto the table, and his bowl tips over to the floor. The atmosphere fills with terror. The elders stare at him like hawks. They had planned this. And it turns out this kind woman is actually the most psychotic of them all. At that moment, Songwon regrets not following the soldier's advice. Unfortunately, there's little he can do as his own body succumbs to the effects of the meal. In the end, our protagonist loses consciousness. In the next scene, he opens his eyes and sees an infected devouring a limb. The crazed infected spins around to lunge at his face, but is restrained by the chain holding it. Songwon is furious, but I'm genuinely glad our best guy, Sumin, is still alive. It's good that the infection can't reach them, or at least not yet. The soldier points out that they're in a terrible situation, but still salvageable. After all, if the elders really wanted to take their lives, they would have done it already. For now, the best option is to wait and watch. To Songwon's horror, he sees the woman emerge from the shadows, expressing that she was tired of the elders who didn't know what they were doing. Moreover, apparently, she is the psychotic mastermind who's been waiting for the perfect moment to massacre them. The soldier offers her a way out, promising to overlook her crime if she returns with them to the base. However, the psychotic woman is not convinced, pointing out that even the army prioritizes rescuing children and doesn't care about anyone else. In fact, these miserable people had already tried contacting the army. She believes it's better to negotiate with them and cooperate with her group. Songwon is disappointed and asks if her story about the rescued children was also a lie, to which she confirms it is not. Hearing this, he pleads for his daughter. The woman is stunned at first before bursting into mocking laughter, ridiculing Songwon for believing the ruse. Giving him a threatening look, she says she's not gathering the children just to save their lives. When Songwon boldly asks about her true motivation, the woman tells a story, or rather a theory, about the children's bodies being completely immune to the infected. Following that logic, the psychotic woman decided that if she could feed her daughter only with children, someday she would become human again. And yes, that chained girl devouring a piece of meat is actually her own daughter, held captive. He watches her with admiration, while Sumin yells at her for being ridiculous and foolish. The woman doesn't flinch, claiming he's only foolish in the eyes of others. But for someone like Songwon, the situation is very similar. He's also desperate to save his daughter. And then, and it pains me to say this, our boy sees the same soccer ball from the night before, the one he used to play with Myung. Fear, denial, and despair wash over him as he sees Myung's face, and he hesitantly asks what happened to all the children in the shelter. In response, the psychotic cultist explains that she's only doing her job feeding her daughter, nothing more than a sacrifice. Her words make Songwon tremble as he proceeds to ask a terrifying question: what happened to Myung? The woman looks at him with amusement, pointing out that he didn't even know the girl's name, implying that she's already dead. Songwon's world crumbles, and he becomes utterly enraged, screaming at the top of his lungs to break the chains. But before he can act, the leader of the psychotic cult is quick and presses a machete against his head, a look of satisfaction on her face. The horrific scene awakens a memory in Sumin, who had been complicit in helping Sergeant Lee Byung-go with all his crimes. Every time the sergeant acted on his own without informing the base, Sumin had scolded him. Although Sumin wanted the children to seek safety at the base, the sergeant opposed the suggestion every time, believing it was a waste of time. All this time, Sumin had to accept things as they were, following orders while the world fell into despair. He froze his own critical analysis of everything that happened. And almost the same happened with his companions. Everyone stopped thinking and followed orders until the day Songwon infiltrated the base, enraged in his search for his lost daughter. At that moment, the soldier felt he needed to break the cycle of being just a cog in a huge machine. He didn't want to stay silent, and wanted to act according to the situation. That's why he testified in favor of Songwon, and supported his cause before the commander. In this way, the soldier thought that maybe, after redeeming himself through his actions, he could finally find atonement for all the things he had blindly let happen. But in the end, this woman got her way and deceived them like a simple tool. The situation has truly become a disaster for him. By the way, at this point, she's already taken him outside and even offers Sumin the chance to stay in the shelter, as long as he follows her orders. But all he could think about were his mistakes. The hypocrisy of having warned Songwon dozens of times not to trust a stranger, only to fall into the trap of eating the food offered to him. The realization reduces him to a state of complete terror, and he feels enormous guilt over his actions. When he begins to cry, the woman is surprised. To mock him further, she brings an entire audience to laugh at him as he cries pitifully. Sumin has already lost his mind and continues apologizing for his endless mistakes, while the cult leader greatly enjoys his pathetic state. She beats and humiliates him, reminding him that he must maintain his former facade of a strong soldier. When she finishes with him, she lets her old bastard step on him. But in the state he's in, Sumin doesn't even feel the pain. All he feels is immense guilt, as he drags himself across the ground. Finally, he mentions someone's name, apologizing for having harmed him so much. The man could have easily stopped the sergeant, yet Sumin didn't even report to the base. The cultists, seeing him, think his mind is probably completely shattered, surely by the situation he's in. The mention of someone's name causes his pile of bones to regenerate and maintain its form. By the way, it's implied that our boy's flesh was torn right after receiving the machete blow, because he's literally regenerating from nothing while dragging himself like a raging beast. The cultists are terrified, wondering what the hell they're dealing with. The old man points out he's a monster, so they do what they know best and start shooting him. Bullets pierce his body. But at this point, what difference does it make? Songwon's superhuman regeneration is displayed in full before Sumin's eyes, who finally connects the dots. See, the infected man who shot from afar when it all began was actually him. And now he's become an unstoppable beast of madness, ready to kill anyone in his way to save his daughter. But first, he's going to slaughter every one of those bastards. Our protagonist says he must get home no matter what. With a terrifying gaze, he declares he has guests and must welcome them. One of the cultists attacks the protagonist with a blade, aimed quickly at his abdomen. He shouts for the protagonist to die, but to the man's surprise, our boy seems unfazed after being stabbed. His eye slowly turns toward the man. At that moment, the attacker begins to back away, stammering. Suddenly, he screams in agony. Soldier Sumin cries as he watches, while the woman remains indifferent. With a quick move, our young man grabs the man by the head and lifts him. With his mouth, he lifts him like an animal. He bites down hard and slams him onto the ground mercilessly. The other cultists panic, and the woman shouts to tie him up somewhere. One of the cultists grabs a gun and fires several times at the young man. The bullets hit his chest, but he doesn't stop. One of the bullets strikes his head, and yet he continues forward without hesitation. With an agile move, our protagonist snatches the weapon from the thug with great force and approaches dangerously. The man's eyes widen, unable to believe what he sees. Our young man attacks the man while another cultist approaches from behind with a knife. Just as the blade is about to strike, his friend hits one of the cultists, preventing the attack. Soon, the protagonist obliterates the old man with pure hatred. He decides to use his own mouth against the thug and begins tearing off his limbs like an animal. The protagonist rises as everyone watches, and 3 of them have already been definitively eliminated. Soldier Sumin is completely paralyzed with fear, unable to utter a word. Our young man approaches him, face smeared and one eye glowing. He stares at him intently. Suddenly, a strange scream comes from our boy's mouth, sounding unstable. His eye glows intensely, and he seems to be losing control. The protagonist grabs his head with his hands, showing immense pain. He emits some growls as he struggles to stay conscious in that moment. Our young man approaches the soldier, who watches him, murmuring his own name as if trying to calm himself somehow. The boy asks him what happened and why he's like this. Sumin thinks quickly and realizes he must explain everything before it's too late. With a trembling voice, he begins to tell the protagonist what happened. The soldier reveals that the cultists were responsible for Mayung's fate. Our young man stays silent for a moment, processing that terrible information. He seems to control himself, not wanting to explode in rage again at the news. Soon, he uses his eye to look around, as if searching for something. He scans his surroundings and remembers the food served in the kitchen, and in a nearby container, some pieces of meat. With a look of disgust, he finally realizes what they did to the children. He recalls the woman's words about buying children to rescue them, and also that the little ones were immune and worth a lot of money on the market. Back in the present, our boy glares at the remaining cultists with a lethal look. In a fit of rage, he grabs one of the men by the robe and lifts him effortlessly. Then he stomps heavily on the ground. With the hooded figure in his hands, he prepares to throw the man. In a brutal move, he hurls him, and the hooded body crashes into another thug. Wasting no time, our young man runs toward the others, grabs one, and holds him firmly. With a final strike, he slams him to the ground. With a threatening gaze, he tells the woman to stop what she's doing immediately. She threatens him, saying if he moves, his friend will pay the price. But the soldier shouts that it's fine, and that the real culprits are the cultists. Our protagonist asks her what she wants, and the woman orders him back to the basement from before. He questions why she harms humans when she could feed on the infected. The woman calls him crazy and asks if he wants to get infected by eating those creatures. With a serious expression, our boy seems to understand something important from her response. He confronts her, rhetorically asking if she thinks he is human. The woman is shocked by the question and can't answer. She stares at him with wide eyes as a strange sound echoes through the place. Soon, creatures begin emerging from the infection caused by the protagonist on the woman's friends. The woman just watches, remaining in shock. Suddenly, she feels immense pain in her eye and screams desperately from the protagonist's surprise attack. We see the dark sky as only desperate screams are heard. Lying on the ground, she says she can't become a monster to protect her daughter. She reflects on monsters, the infected, and humans who hurt each other. Looking down at her, our young man asks what difference there is between her and one of the infected. With a vacant stare, she can only whisper her beloved daughter's name, Mina. With an evil smile, the woman asks if that's her daughter's name, just to provoke him. Our protagonist is shocked and wonders how she could know the name of his little girl. His friend thinks she's delirious, but the boy knows he never said the last name. The woman remembers the boy, and our young man grabs her, demanding to know what she did with his daughter. He holds her tightly and shouts, wanting to know where Mina is while she cries, holding a gun to her own head. With tears and a strange smile, she says he should experience hell too. A gunshot is heard, and red blood splashes across the protagonist's face. The woman falls to the ground, and our boy remains motionless. His hand begins trembling violently as he watches what she just did. At that moment, Soldier Sumin screams his name, and warns him to be careful. Suddenly, one of the creatures lunges from behind the protagonist. But before it can reach him, he uses another move from his combat style, easily dispatching the creature. Being used to arm locks, this time he applies one to the creature's leg. With hatred, he applies pure force to the creature's leg, breaking it and throwing it away, but another attacks immediately. The protagonist prepares a leg sweep, and with another move, he shifts over the monster. With these maneuvers, he topples the zombie, and furious, he rises and strikes its face with a log, finishing it instantly. With a dark gaze, he says the woman was wrong about what hell is. The other monsters charge at him furiously. Our young man clenches his fist, preparing for the coming battle. He grabs one of the monsters by the hood, and repeats that they are all wrong. With an acrobatic move, he kicks it in the face with great precision and force, hitting hard. Without giving it a chance to react, our boy eliminates it easily. Then he says that a place without his beloved daughter Mina has already become hell. With a vacant stare and a bleeding eye, he reaffirms that this place is hell. Another monster tries to attack him, but he dodges and grabs it. He slams it to the ground, but more and more monsters come to attack. Some manage to bite him. His eyes, like the Sharingan, reflect and enhance his reflexes. With his combat skills, he can handle the monsters easily. His strikes are full of hatred, unleashing all his fury against them. His gaze reflects pure hatred for not being with his daughter. With his wounded body healing, the protagonist is breathless. On his back, he takes a deep breath, holding the monsters' heads in his hands. Soldier Sumin calls his name. With a serious expression, the young man only responds, waiting for a signal. With tears in his eyes, our protagonist asks the question he fears most, whether his daughter Mina is gone. Soldier Sumin remains silent and looks away, unable to answer. The lack of response is enough, and our protagonist lowers his head, completely devastated. Sumin then places a cloak over the young man's shoulders, trying to comfort him. With tears streaming down his face, our boy cries silently over the supposed loss of his daughter. Sumin simply looks away, not knowing what to say. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out, "Dad!" rekindling his hope. They quickly turn to see who's calling. The protagonist, still crying, is stunned. His eyes widen as he barely processes it. There's Mina, his daughter, whom he thought was lost forever. The little girl cries desperately, calling her father with a trembling voice. Without thinking, the protagonist runs toward the girl with all his strength. With a scream full of emotion, he runs as fast as he can to reach his beloved daughter. The little girl continues crying, arms outstretched, waiting for her father's embrace. Tears continue running down her face as he gets closer and closer. Finally, he hugs her with all his strength, unable to believe it's real. With dirty hands and a wet face, he holds her tightly, fearing it's only a dream. He cries as he embraces her. Soldier Sumin also watches in disbelief. However, Sumin notices it's not his daughter, but the boy from the night before who saw him as a father figure. Later, they return to the gas station where they last separated. The protagonist remembers telling the boy he had to find his lost daughter. With a kind smile, he told him Mei Young was a good boy and would understand the situation. The little boy nodded, though he was sad to part ways. But the boy reminds him of a promise that could not be broken under any circumstances. Mei Young reminds him of the promise that he and the protagonist's daughter would play together someday. The memory shows the happy image of both having fun like a small family. A slight smile appears on the young man's face. In the memory, our boy confirms the promise, and little Mei Young celebrates happily. Soon, he tells the boy to go to the post where the army is while he stays hidden with Sumin. Our protagonist gestures, "Shu," to the boy, who understands and copies the gesture with a smile. They return to the blue truck. He tells Sumin he doesn't blame him and asks him to take the boy back to the base. The soldier remains silent, lowering his head, unable to face the protagonist. Remembering how he cried, he laments and says if he had acted sooner, none of this would have happened. Then he says he could have prevented all this if he had tried to stop him earlier. Clenching his fist, he declares that his mission is to find the protagonist's daughter at all costs. Our protagonist listens silently with a serious expression, but soon a small approving smile appears on his lips. The soldier suggests they treat each other with more trust, and that he calls him Big Brother. Sumin says he feels more comfortable that way, and the two set off together on their new mission. We return to the place where that cruel woman committed her atrocities. Meanwhile, the cult woman remains on the ground. Suddenly, her eye opens, revealing a sinister red pupil similar to the protagonist's. Elsewhere in the city, the protagonist and the soldier continue their relentless search for Mina. They stop a survivor in the middle of the street for useful information, but the guy with the cap seems to shake his head, unwilling to get too involved. Undeterred, the duo continues through the city looking for any clue about the girl. They approach another man in front of a gate, hoping he knows something. Both look at him seriously. They return to the search with the blue truck and arrive at a more remote location. An old man says he hasn't seen any girls, but he has seen people with centipede tattoos on their skulls. Our young man asks where to find them, and the man says they sold everything, even people. Sumin asks what happened, and the old man replies he didn't get involved because they were crazy. As they leave, the man invites them to a plaza, and Sumin asks why. He explains he deals with a group that has many children, and this could help them in their search. Our boy decides to stay and investigate, and tells Sumin to go get the motorcycle. Alone, Sumin starts the motorcycle, preparing to continue his search for information. The man warns it's dangerous to go alone, but our young man responds that time is essential. Elsewhere in the city, the protagonist wields a large axe with a precise strike. He cuts off the head of the creature in his path, and the head rolls across the ground. With a cold gaze, he faces the situation without showing fear. At that moment, the man with the cap appears and says he arrived just in time. The protagonist thanks him, but the thug asks them to get straight to the point. Suddenly, the man pulls out a gun and points it at the young man's head. It's revealed to be an ambush, with several armed men surrounding the protagonist. With an evil smile, the man says he'll take the vehicle and all the supplies. Our boy asks what's happening, and the old man says he must disappear forever. He asks if he's not worried about the soldier, and the man responds that everything will be covered up. With the gun still aimed, he says the world works this way now, with no rules. But our young man just smiles, showing he's not intimidated in the slightest. Suddenly, he picks up the head of the monster he just defeated. The man with the cap looks disgusted and completely confused. Holding the head in his hand, our boy raises it into the air. The thug asks what he's doing with it. Our protagonist holds the head high, and suddenly, a shot pierces the monster's skull. Everyone is stunned by what just happened. At that moment, we see the truck. We flash back to the blue truck on the way to where they are now. We see his conversation with Sumin about not trusting anyone 100%. Back in the present, our boy says he didn't trust them at all either. He warns that there are snipers targeting them from all sides, watching their every move. With that, he demands that they put all their weapons and ammunition in the truck. The man with the cap panics and begs him to forget everything, saying it was a mistake. With a cold stare, our young man calls him crazy and says he doesn't even know what a mistake is. The thug offers information, but our boy repeats that he never trusted him. One of the henchmen reveals that every Saturday night, loud music is heard at the Exco concert hall. The man guarantees they'll find something there, but our protagonist considers the information useless. The thug explains that, with people scattered, it's better to go to crowded places to get information. Our boy seems to consider the new lead and stays silent for a moment, analyzing everything. Then they head to the Exco concert hall, a massive building. Our young man and the soldier enter carefully. He finds it suspicious that there are no guards, and the soldier thinks they've been tricked again. Suddenly, loud music starts blaring, and both are completely shocked. Our protagonist tells Sumin to go back, but the soldier decides to infiltrate through the roof to provide cover. The young man insists that, given the current situation, it's safer and that he can provide cover if anything happens. Our boy stays silent and seems to accept his companion's risky plan. Meanwhile, Soldier Sumin opens a door leading to the roof. Climbing the stairs, he wonders why they're making so much noise, as it attracts the infected. He proceeds cautiously up the concrete steps, unsure what awaits above. Reaching the top floor, the soldier is shocked by what he sees: a group of monsters rushing down the stairs to the beat of Linkin Park. In a close-up, we see the strange faces of the creatures with black eyes and disturbing smiles. The soldier immediately realizes it was all a huge trap for them. Meanwhile, our protagonist approaches a large red door from where the music is coming. Carefully, he peeks through the crack to see what's happening inside the hall. His eye widens, and he is stunned by the bizarre scene before him. On stage, a blonde girl dressed like an idol dances energetically to the loud music. In disbelief, our young man throws the doors open for a better view of the performance. It's revealed to be a full concert, with an audience waving light sticks for the girl. His expression is pure shock. He can't process what he's seeing. Back on the stairs, the monsters pass by Soldier Sumin. Thinking he'll be attacked, he steps back, but the monsters are already too close. Desperate, he screams as they advance. Unable to defend himself, Sumin falls to the ground. The creatures pass by him, pushing him aside. But something surprising happens. The monsters don't attack the soldier. They simply ignore him. He sits on the ground, completely confused, unable to understand what just happened. Cold sweat on his face, he tries to process why they didn't attack. The zombies are only running toward the music. Meanwhile, on the concert stage, the bright lights continue illuminating the hall intensely. Our protagonist remains paralyzed and in shock, unable to believe what he sees. The girl on stage is beautiful, and her eyes aren't red like the protagonist's, but a soft pink. With a mischievous smile and a wink, she poses for the audience, which screams in excitement. The audience consists of various monsters and infected acting like obsessed fans of the idol. At that moment, our young man's eye glows, realizing he might be able to get information from the infected. With this idea, he starts walking toward the crowd of monsters without fear. He approaches a group and asks if they've seen people with centipede tattoos. One of the infected monsters seems annoyed by him, shouting that the music is too loud and that our boy is ruining Lucy's show. The protagonist can't believe it as the zombie keeps complaining that he's ruining the concert experience. But another monster defends him, saying he might be a new member of the Lucid Dream fan club. Losing his patience, our boy shouts that the show isn't important and that he needs to find someone. However, as he says this, he realizes he's made a huge mistake. The crowd of monsters stops looking at the stage and turns to look at him. With pure hatred in their eyes, the monsters ask if he just disrespected Lucy. From a catwalk, a soldier observes the unusual concert. He thinks not all infected are the same. There are those who just follow their instincts, with no intelligence. Then there are higher-level infected who can communicate and form societies. Finally, there are specials like Sungwon, with unique powers. That's why it's not surprising that infected idols exist too. What the soldier doesn't understand is why Sungwon is down there, dancing with them. On stage, a group of infected girls performs a choreography. The leader, a blonde girl, strikes a final pose. She thinks she should act tired, even if she isn't. Suddenly, the protagonist interrupts the show, taking an infected as a hostage. He asks the crowd to calm down, saying he didn't come to fight. Through a radio, his companion offers to create an escape route, but he refuses. The boy doesn't want to cause more trouble than necessary. The infected are surprised to hear him speak human language. The idol, Lucy, approaches and asks why he's interrupting her performance. An angry fan shouts that the protagonist isn't a Lucy fan. Someone tries to explain he just wants to talk. The blonde girl stops her fans and asks what he wants. He says he's looking for a group with skull and centipede tattoos. These guys stole something very valuable, and he believes she can help. One fan objects, saying the newcomer insulted her. Lucy smiles, saying she receives a lot of love and must give it back. The fan insists they shouldn't help because he's not a true follower. Quickly, the protagonist declares he is now Lucy's biggest fan. The infected doesn't believe him and attacks, but someone kicks him away. With a serious look, he assures the idol he's sincere. She believes him, saying it's normal to fall in love with her at first sight. But to calm her fans, she asks him to prove he's a true follower. From above, the soldier watches the scene, completely confused. Lucy tells him that if he's really a fan, he must know her choreographies. If he dances better than everyone else, she'll recognize him as a true fan. The soldier is shocked seeing the protagonist prepare to dance. The boy starts following the steps, striking cute poses. Moved, the soldier cries seeing the image of a father sacrificing everything for his daughter. He knows it's all for finding Nina and promises to tell her about her father's sacrifice. The other fans are also impressed and decide to help if he's in trouble. Just as the dance ends, an old infected man steps onto the stage. He tells the protagonist that this isn't Lucy's dance, but to pay attention. The old man assures him that what he'll show will help someday. Using his suspenders, the old man performs a strange, powerful dance. The protagonist is amazed by the moves he sees. When it ends, the dancer tells him not to be discouraged. Then he turns to Lucy, saying victory was never important. The girl just wanted to see everyone enjoying together. The old man says goodbye and leaves with his clones. Lucy sits with the protagonist and confesses she organized the event to gather information. She confirms that the humans he's looking for are despicable beings. They trade not only humans but also infected. He asks if she knows where they are. The girl agrees to tell him if he answers her question. Lucy stares at him and asks if he can truly speak human language. Both remain silent for a moment. The soldier, from his position, thinks things were resolved well. He believes they'll now get more information thanks to Sunwon's communication. Suddenly, the old dancer jumps and attacks Sunwon. The soldier is startled and grabs his rifle. He observes the scene through the scope. He debates whether to provide supporting fire. He thinks that acting rashly could make things worse. He realizes everything was going well, but suddenly it all goes wrong. Lucy asks Sunwon why he's acting like that. She says he did everything as she wanted. The old man looms over Sunwon with a threatening gaze. Lucy, furious, says he pretended to be her fan to deceive them. She warns him not to think he'll leave there safely. The protagonist wipes the blood from his mouth. Just by looking at his stance, it's clear he won't be easy to defeat. He tries to reason with them, but Lucy accuses him of stalling for time. The fighter attacks him with a kick, but the protagonist barely blocks it. Meanwhile, the soldier is surrounded by infected who take his weapon. One of them fires accidentally, and the soldier and the others fall off the catwalk. Taking advantage of the distraction, the protagonist exchanges blows with the fighter, but the infected is too strong and knocks him down with a single strike. Lucy praises his acting skills, saying he almost fooled her. Defeated on the ground, the protagonist asks what they want from him. Lucy gets excited and offers for him to be her manager to attract human fans. He agrees on the condition that they guarantee the safety of his colleague. The girl smiles and says she already asked her fans to make him a colleague. The protagonist realizes they plan to turn the soldier into one of them. Lucy tells him not to worry, as they'll be free from aging and disease. Angry, the protagonist tells her they've crossed the line. He stands up, preparing to fight seriously. The fighter hits him brutally, but the boy withstands the attacks. Despite taking a beating, the protagonist does not give up. With broken teeth, Lucy realizes he has healing abilities. She thinks that even if he's special, he can't beat them and tells him to surrender. He wonders if he has grown weaker or if they are just too strong. At that moment, he remembers his life before the apocalypse. His wife asks if he regrets quitting Jiu-Jitsu. She assures him she'll support him no matter what he decides. He remembers that back then, Jiu-Jitsu was all he had. He thinks if he had given up in that final, maybe he'd still be competing. But if that had happened, he wouldn't have met his wife or daughter. Now he has things far more precious than Jiu-Jitsu. His wife's voice pulls him from his memories, telling him to get up. She reminds him that he has to go save Mina. With renewed determination, the protagonist realizes he's been holding back. He decides to use a dangerous technique he never dared to use in a real fight. From the ground, he tells his opponent not to act like he's already won. With a defiant look, he assures her he hasn't lost yet. The narration explains that defending against attacks is a survival instinct. Maintaining balance to avoid falling is also a natural movement. However, Jiu-Jitsu techniques cannot be handled by intuition alone. An opponent with no knowledge of this martial art can be defeated if the fight goes to the ground. Because of this advantage, Jiu-Jitsu was once considered the strongest. The boy in black lies on the ground, seemingly defeated. He tells his opponent not to act like he's already won. The narration explains that counter-strategies are now known. That's why Jiu-Jitsu alone no longer makes you the strongest. But if you assume your opponent doesn't understand it, then you will be the most powerful. The young man on the ground rises slightly and declares he hasn't lost yet. The blonde girl looks at him with disgust and tells him not to use strange stances. She says his fancy words give her chills and disgust. The protagonist replies that if his opponent doesn't go first, then he will. The masked fighter looks at him, confused by his words. Using one hand, the young man pushes off the ground. The girl is surprised by the sudden, strange movement. He performs an acrobatic maneuver, spinning around himself. The protagonist positions himself directly beneath his opponent. The blonde girl screams that it's horrible and disgusting, wishing he be eliminated. The masked fighter is in a very awkward combat position. In that state, his attack options are very limited. He raises his leg, preparing to kick the boy on the ground. Suddenly, he stomps hard on his opponent's face. The blonde girl smiles and says it would have been more comfortable if he had stayed down. The young man replies that he actually stayed down the whole time. The girl's expression changes as she realizes the trap. The masked fighter struggles to free himself with force. The narration explains that Jiu-Jitsu techniques cannot be handled by instinct. Even if it seems he escaped danger by luck, countless traps exist. The loop tightens relentlessly around the masked fighter. The protagonist uses his grip to drag the opponent to the ground. Once the opponent is dragged down, the fight is over. The boy in black stands victorious over his fallen enemy. The girl looks at him with a surprised and shy expression. The protagonist addresses the crowd, warning them not to come closer. He claims they are no match for him, and would only waste their time. The blonde girl asks everyone to please return to their seats. The young man approaches her and asks one last question. He wants to know if the companions who came with him are safe. The girl says she doesn't know, as she only heard a gunshot. She hints that it probably wasn't good news. Then she says she will tell him something interesting. The blonde reveals that, like him, she also has special powers. She can control the new species that aren't intelligent. The protagonist stares at her as she continues explaining. He demands she give him information about the people he's looking for. He warns that he won't ask twice. The young man tells her that if she cooperates, he'll eliminate her without paying. The girl smiles and says that she, Lucy, hasn't finished speaking yet. Suddenly, a new fighter appears behind the protagonist. The newcomer tells the young man that the fight isn't over. The protagonist turns and observes the new opponent. He notices the man's hands don't look ordinary. The fighter says that if he had seen the fight, he'd know he's a Jiu-Jitsu expert. The boy in black prepares for the new confrontation. Suddenly, the protagonist is hit with a quick, precise strike. The protagonist's face is covered in red liquid. Lucy comments that people are deceived by her cute appearance. She clarifies that she won't join the fight, holding some nunchucks. The girl tells the protagonist he can lower his guard against her. Meanwhile, the Jiu-Jitsu fighter strikes him, while he's distracted. The protagonist is knocked to the ground once again. Lucy continues talking as he lies there. She explains that she can't control friends with intelligence, but she can read their memories. The condition is that they must be unconscious, like he is now. She offers her help to find the tattooed people. Lucy kneels beside him and places a hand on his face. She says that, even so, he doesn't seem to trust her. She smiles and whispers that she's never been wrong. However, the room falls completely silent. Lucy keeps pressing on his face, and a tremor appears as she does. The zombies watch silently, while we see our girl looking ominous. Do you think she'll manage to read the protagonist's mind? If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and comment. That would be really great. Thanks for making it to the end. See you in the next video. Goodbye. We see a train station and our protagonist before everything began. Someone was standing there, wondering where he should go. He thought anywhere would be fine. Our hero just wanted to go somewhere where no one knew him. He had been told that his surgery and rehabilitation would take at least 3 years, and that returning to his former condition would take even longer. Now on the train, he wonders if it's time to give up. Our protagonist remains silent. Then he looks at a candy vending machine. The train car is completely empty. He's the only one there. He takes a Snickers bar and thinks that he no longer has to worry about his diet or his daily protein intake. He wouldn't have to train hard late at night anymore, nor work part-time jobs just to compete in tournaments with no prize money. With a sad look, he says that he no longer has to fight. Someone drops the chocolate bar onto the floor. He picks it up and suddenly starts crying. At that moment, a young woman appears beside him. The protagonist is startled. The woman takes another Snickers bar and offers it to him. Someone wipes away his tears and refuses the chocolate. She asks him why he was crying and sits down next to him. Our protagonist thinks that since she's a stranger, maybe he can open up to her. Believing he'll never see her again, he begins to share his feelings. The girl asks if he can no longer compete because of his injured leg. He answers yes. She replies that if he were a chair, that would make sense. But he's a person, and he wasn't born just for sports. Our protagonist responds that he lived only for sports, and that's why he feels he has no value if he isn't an athlete. The girl tells him that isn't true, that he's special simply for existing. Sungwon is surprised by her words. He asks why, saying it's the first time he's ever heard something like that. The woman laughs and asks where he's going. He answers, Busan. She says she's going to visit her family's home and says goodbye, wishing him a safe trip. Just as she's about to leave, she stops for a moment. She turns around and says that in a strange way, now that he's no longer a Jiu-Jitsu champion, he's just an ordinary person who will live a normal life like everyone else. But that doesn't mean he has no value. She concludes by saying that it doesn't take away from the worth of his existence. Smiling, she says that simply being born is reason enough to be loved. Our protagonist watches as the girl walks away, thinking she's just a stranger he'll never see again. She gets off the train, and he believes they'll never meet again. However, he stops at the train door, looks around, and sees her. He calls out to her, and asks her to wait a moment. The woman turns around and asks what he wants. Out of breath, he asks how she knew he practiced Jiu-Jitsu. She points to his backpack, which is covered in Jiu-Jitsu stickers. Smiling, she asks if he got off the train just because of that curiosity. He blushes and scratches his head, not knowing what to say. She smiles at him warmly. The two of them stand on the platform, looking at each other. The train leaves, and they keep talking in the empty station. Lucy then sees many memories pass by like a movie. After that encounter on the train, they shared many special moments. Their destinies intertwined, and that beautiful fate bore fruit, a beautiful baby for both of them. The phrase, "precious just for existing," appears on the screen. At the hospital, she introduces Mina to the protagonist and proudly says she's their daughter. Our hero is left in shock, as his baby reminds him of that moment on the train, when she said that simply being born is reason enough to be loved. Silence fills the room until she asks him what's wrong. Seeing him cry, his beloved asks why he has that expression. The protagonist fears that this happy moment might someday break, and that everything could end. She replies that that moment will certainly come, because as humans, one day they will disappear. She repeats that day will come sooner or later, so they must enjoy the time they have. Tears run down someone's face. She tells them to love without regrets. Someone looks ahead with fear of the future, but she comforts him by saying, "Let's cherish and love each other without regrets until the very end." He manages a small smile. He sits beside his beloved and his daughter and hugs them in a warm, familial, and irreplaceable moment. The zombie audience falls silent as Lucy hugs the protagonist on stage under the spotlights. They remain embraced at the center of the brightly lit stage. Tears fall from Lucy's face as she holds him. Through him, she understands the difference between the infected and humans. She remembers the love and blessings that come with human birth, as well as her first memory, a bright light in front of her. A love different from the one she received from her fans. A true love. Lucy's tears fall onto someone's face. She begins to sob. The pain of losing someone she loves fills her mind. Then she calls him Sir and promises to help him with all her strength. She gently hugs him and tells him they will definitely find Mina. Meanwhile, Sumin faces the zombies on the rooftop, holding a knife to defend himself. The soldier is tense because he was bitten, though luckily not on bare skin. He thinks that if it hadn't been for his protective gear, he'd be in serious trouble. He realizes they are high-level infected with advanced intelligence. Sumin thinks he can't take them all on with just a bayonet. Suddenly, he gets an idea. If they understand the danger of firearms, they'll surely know what this is. Sumin pulls the pin on a grenade, causing the zombies to flee in terror. He knows he can't just throw it. His plan is to use it to escape. Suddenly, a voice calls out to him over the radio. Sumin replies that the situation isn't good, but he's okay. Lucy's voice asks him to hand the radio to one of the infected. Confused, Sumin puts the pin back in the grenade and calms down. Then he throws the radio to one of the zombies. The infected, surprised, catches it. Lucy says there was a misunderstanding and that they were just fans. The two infected are confused, but they cooperate. After the performance, our hero speaks with Sumin. Sumin says they decided to leave after finishing the final show. He wonders if it's really okay to travel alongside the infected, and someone replies that unfortunately, he lost the fight. Our protagonist states that they know the location of the people with tattoos, but if they don't take risks, they'll never find their daughter. Sumin grows thoughtful. He thinks that without a weapon, he's nothing, and that if he keeps being a burden, he'll only slow down the search for Mina. He realizes he needs to find a solution so he won't be useless. On stage, Lucy asks if everyone has been happy all this time and thanks them for loving her for so long. At that moment, she breaks down crying. With a flushed face, she says she has to leave. She says the request is embarrassing, but she has to ask it anyway. Lucy asks if they'll come see her perform again once all this is over. The crowd falls silent. She feels foolish for asking her fans to wait while she leaves them behind. She's discouraged until she decides to lift her head. Then she starts crying. With the support of all her fans, she feels loved. The fans cry and say goodbye to their idol. Lucy takes a deep breath and prepares for her farewell. With a tearful smile, she thanks everyone for loving her. Later that night, they board a truck. In the back, the soldier Sumin stands guard. Someone asks Lucy if she's okay, since they could have just obtained the location. Lucy responds that finding Mina is the priority. Our hero thanks her, and is surprised to hear Mina's name. He then asks for more information about the tattooed people. Lucy agrees and says she'll share what she read from one of her fans' memories. On an ordinary day, a zombie wanted to eat fresh humans, as usual. Then it saw 2 adults and 3 children getting out of a black van. The infected began to salivate, but didn't have the courage to attack the men. Other intelligent zombies, however, couldn't restrain themselves and attacked. In less than 5 minutes, the zombie realized it had been wise not to get involved. The men loaded their companions' bodies into the trunk and drove away. Someone comments that those people buy and sell anything that makes them money. The girl gets angry and says that treating their hungry companions like that is horrible. Our hero remains silent. After some time, they're forced to get off the truck and continue on foot. Sumin asks what they're going to do with the coffin of Lucy's friend they're carrying in the vehicle. Our protagonist asks the soldier if the current situation seems normal to him. Sumin answers fearfully that it doesn't. In front of them, the street is filled with zombies hanging from poles and cables. Our protagonist asks again if that looks normal to him. With an expression of absolute shock, Sumin answers no, that everything is extremely strange. Seeing the hanging bodies, he confirms that this is definitely not normal. Our hero then says that it looks like they've finally found the right place. At that moment, a man appears and asks who they are, leaving the group completely stunned. The 3 of them stare at the mysterious man. Sumin comments that it'll be hard to move forward with the bike and that they'll have to continue on foot from here. The mysterious man takes a drag from his cigarette and remarks on how unusual the group's combination is. Our protagonist notices centipede tattoos on his body. Jae-hik gets straight to the point and asks if they're carrying small children. The tattooed man remains silent. Suddenly, the man moves quickly and shoots the soldier Sumin. Our protagonist's eyes widen in shock, unable to understand what just happened. The tattooed man, gun drawn, says that was the first warning. Then he starts shooting at our hero and the girl, counting the shots as he fires. He empties the magazine without stopping. Despite taking a bullet to the arm, our hero doesn't flinch. He charges forward in a rage and grabs the tattooed man with incredible strength, trying to restrain the enemy's armed hand. Jae-hik threatens him, saying he'll hit him so hard he'll never get back up. The villain is shocked, saying it's unbelievable that he can still move after taking so many shots. Our protagonist is stunned by the enemy's calmness in such a dangerous situation. Then, the tattooed man manages to break free and counterattacks with a quick strike. He pulls out an axe hidden in his clothes and asks whether Jae-hik can withstand the next attack. Without hesitation, he delivers a brutal blow straight to our hero's head. After attacking him, the man shifts his gaze towards someone else. The zombie idol of our protagonist notices that look. Before he can attack her, another zombie lunges toward them, determined to protect his idol, and just as the mysterious man swings the axe for another strike, the zombie punches him. With a single blow, he manages to disarm him. The fight intensifies. The muscular man easily knocks the axe into the air, though the enemy manages to catch it again. The long-haired fighter anticipates his next move. Enraged, the tattooed man swings the weapon once more. With a swift motion, the muscular fighter deflects the axe again, sending it crashing to the ground. The villain recovers and comments that his opponent's hand is brutal. The red-eyed fighter stares at him without saying a word. Seeing the incoming charge, the tattooed man is caught off guard and takes a defensive stance. He tries to block the punch, but the speed is unbelievable. He quickly crouches, preparing an uppercut, but when he throws it, the zombie dodges effortlessly and leaps backward. The tattooed man is impressed by his agility. With a quick spin, he manages to create some distance. The long-haired fighter falls to the ground, but the zombie seizes the opportunity, grabs him by the neck, and slams him down. The force of the impact sends the tattooed man flying backward, crashing hard onto the ground. The brute doesn't waste a second and throws a powerful closed fist punch. The blow lands violently right beside the enemy's face, narrowly missing as he dodges at the last moment. The villain rolls across the ground to create distance from the zombie. The idol takes advantage of the opening and strikes the man with her weapon, hitting him directly in the ankle. The villain screams in pain as he loses his balance. In that moment of distraction, the zombie rushes in and throws a devastating straight punch. However, just before it lands, he suddenly stops. The zombie freezes, not even looking at the tattooed man. The villain takes advantage and kicks him away, knocking him down. The villain turns his gaze toward whatever the zombie was staring at. Suddenly, a massive man appears behind the girl, leaving her completely defenseless at his feet. She can do absolutely nothing. The tattooed man wonders why that zombie suddenly lost control. Another explains that he's a special infected controlled by the girl. He complains that because of the delay, he almost died, and another asks what they should do with the ones they've already taken down. The tattooed man lights a cigarette and says there's nothing to think about, they should finish them off. However, the brute with a spider tattoo on his face questions why they always go to such extremes. In the end, they decide to sell everyone except our protagonist, and deduce that Sumin survived because he was wearing a bulletproof vest. They also comment that there are a lot of useful things in the truck and decide to take everything. Meanwhile, our hero begins to wake up, groaning in pain. With one hand on his face, he opens his eyes in confusion when he hears a voice yelling that he's finally awake. The mysterious voice shouts at Jae-hik to stop staring into space and look up. Our hero looks upward, and the voice confirms that he's right there, watching him. Hanging from a cable, he sees a man begging to be lowered before he turns into human jerky. The hanging man says he's not asking for help for free and that he has a great deal. With a strange smile, he offers to tell him where his friends were taken in exchange for help. Hearing that, our protagonist's eyes fill with uncontrollable and terrifying rage. Jae-hik glares at the hanging man with pure hatred, while the man smiles eerily. The man waves his hand again to get his attention. Our protagonist wonders if he means his friends and notices the blood on his own head. Then he remembers that he loses his memory every time he uses his regeneration ability. Jae-hik focuses and tries to recover any memory from before he passed out, and the image of a man with a centipede tattoo on his hand appears in his mind. He screams, asking if they took everyone and left him behind because they thought he was dead. Looking at his blood-stained hand, he remembers his failure to protect his friends. He also remembers the idol's words about the humans who took his daughter. Clenching his fist, he demands to be guided to their location immediately. With a determined glare, he wants to know where those bastards are right now. The hanging man smiles and confirms that he'll take him to the agreed location. Then he asks if he can finally be taken down. Our hero asks about the others, and the man replies that they're just mindless zombies. He explains that he realized the protagonist is like him. Jae-hik carries him on his back. The man comments that he seems to have traits of both humans and zombies. Our protagonist asks if he's sure his friends were taken there, and the man confirms it. Jae-hik asks where they need to go, and the man responds that he has his own reasons for coming along. Noticing that our hero shows no interest in his story, the man gets offended by the lack of attention. Then he realizes that Jae-hik is one of the three and is searching for the other two. He complains that he had no choice and warns him not to play the hero, because that's bad for your health. Our protagonist walks on in silence, completely ignoring his words. As they descend, they encounter several zombies gathered inside the tunnel. The man remarks that he forgot to warn him that zombies tend to pile up there. Without wasting a second, our hero throws the man off his back and slams him to the ground like a sack of potatoes, then charges into the zombies. One of his punches crushes an infected skull effortlessly, killing it instantly. Suddenly, the zombie man shouts a warning for the protagonist to watch his back. A zombie with a scorpion tattoo attacks and bites down hard. Our hero reacts immediately. Unfazed by the bite, he jams his fingers into the infected's eyes and throws it to the ground. Meanwhile, the man complains about being treated like a background character, completely ignored. Our protagonist realizes there's more than one tattooed infected and suspects this is a trap. Then a massive uproar of screams and the sounds of fighting echoes through the dark tunnel. After defeating the zombies, they reach a dead end, and our hero questions his guide. The man asks him not to look at him like that, saying it hurts his feelings. Suddenly, a severed head on the ground shouts the name, Manduk, and asks if he came looking for him. Manduk is shocked that the talking head recognizes him. The head smiles and says it's great to see him after so long. Manduk complains again and demands an explanation of what's going on. The head explains that he was one of the zombies from that day and confirms that those bastards always pass through there. Manduk reveals that there's a method before going down. They pull a rope and ring a bell. When everyone focuses on the sound, they go down and use a secret passage. The head adds that Manduk didn't fall for the trick and ended up like this after trying to bite them from behind. Without wasting time, our hero asks where the secret passage is. Elsewhere, one of the kidnappers calmly lights a cigarette with a match and begins interrogating the protagonist's friends, who are tied up on the floor. The man finds the mix of humans and infected strange and asks how they communicate. Sumin grows tense, because even if they aren't attacked right away, he knows he can't relax. In his mind, he knows that man could kill them at any moment. The villain gives him two options: get rid of them, or sell them to someone interested. Then he asks Samin if he can understand what the infected girl is saying. To buy time, the soldier lies and says she wants to know where the man who was with them is. The villain grows suspicious and asks if that's really what she said. Suddenly, the man delivers a brutal kick to Samin's stomach, sending him flying backward from the impact. As Samin lies on the ground, writhing in pain, the kidnapper asks if he knows why he was hit. Then he reveals it was for lying, and that his friend took an axe to the head. With a terrifying glare, the villain warns Sumin to choose his words carefully from now on. The scene shifts to a medical diagram showing the internal structure of the human ear. Then, a large man wearing glasses, who appears to be examining a small child, says he'll be done soon. The child then asks the man if he has any chocolate, and he promises to get some later. With that, the man announces they'll all be leaving in an hour and tells the children to get ready. Then he turns the handle of what looks like a vault door. The large man opens it. Suddenly, he stops and notices a strange figure in the darkness. In the dim hallway, our protagonist stares at him with a threatening gaze. The man, shocked, wonders how he's still alive after taking an axe to the head. Not understanding what's happening, the villain reaches out and turns on the hallway light. He comments that he thought he was mistaken due to the poor lighting. Our hero remains motionless, staring him down with red eyes filled with fury. With the light on, the man sees Jay carrying two zombies on his shoulders, like Naruto in Sage Mode with the toads. The villain remarks that he must be human since he can communicate, but asks what that thing behind him is. At that moment, one of the henchmen shouts at our protagonist to stop and not move an inch. Our hero gives him a cold stare and thinks that he's finally reached the right place. Without wasting time, he drops the zombies from his shoulders and throws a punch straight at the large man's face. From the impact, the brute staggers backward several steps, blood spilling from his mouth. The villain repeats that the kid won't get past him. Our protagonist looks at him with the expression of someone who doesn't understand what's happening. The man pinches his nose and insists that he won't pass through that door. With a mocking smile, our hero asks if he's really sure. He says he wants to see if he keeps that attitude after he breaks his limbs. The scene returns to Sumin lying on the ground, while the other villain tells him not to exaggerate over a few blows. The soldier thinks that man has no idea his friend is a special infected. Hearing this, the kidnapper pauses thoughtfully. Then he pulls out a gun and says the warm-up is over and the real game is about to begin. He fully loads the weapon and warns that he'll fire every time the soldier annoys him with his answers. With a nervous expression, the kidnapper asks what their objective is. The soldier reveals they were looking for people with skull and centipede tattoos. The villain points the gun and says now he has a question. In a mocking tone, he tells Sumin to go ahead, ask. Lowering his head, the soldier realizes he's made a serious mistake. He needs to create a reason to keep them alive, because those guys aren't afraid of death. Then Sumin shouts that the only one who could communicate with the infected was the one who took an axe to the head. The kidnapper doubts the story and asks if he's telling the truth. Then he lets out a small, mocking laugh. He says he gave him a chance, leaving Sumin confused. The man explains that he was supposed to ask a question, but instead, Sumin revealed everything. Sumin curses himself. If he had known, he wouldn't have let his friend fall for nothing. However, he realizes this is his last chance and decides to try once more. The villain gives him 5 seconds to speak, and Sumin shouts that they didn't do anything wrong. The kidnapper watches him in silence. Suddenly, he pulls the trigger, but the gun doesn't fire. Sumin freezes in terror, not understanding what just happened. With the gun pressed against his head, the villain scratches his head and says it seems he made a mistake. He explains that at his age, he can read people just by talking to them for a bit. He says Sumin seems like a good guy who grew up in a completely normal environment, but still wonders why all of this is happening. He confronts him about not feeling anything for his fallen friend, and Sumin confirms that he feels nothing. The villain pulls ammunition from his pocket and comments that this is why spoiled kids are good for nothing. Then he steps closer to the soldier, gun in hand, with a threatening glare. He cocks the weapon again and warns that second chances are over. He points the revolver directly at Sumin's forehead and with a dark, rage-filled look, demands that he speak and tell him what he's hiding. We return to the fight with the large man. The brute drops to his knees and finally collapses onto the ground. He's completely beaten, one arm dislocated, yet he never tried to defend himself. Our hero looks confused and wonders why he didn't fight back to protect himself. One of the zombies suggests eating him and says that whoever worked the hardest should eat first. The small zombie insists that our protagonist hurry up and bite the fallen man. Our hero orders him to shut up if he doesn't want to end up dead. Ignoring the small creature, he approaches the door, thinking his daughter might be inside. He closes his eyes and takes a deep breath. As he turns the knob, he imagines the face of his adorable daughter, but his expression changes when he realizes that finding her won't be as easy as he thought. Our hero falls silent as he looks at the children inside. One of them stares at him in terror. A child calls him, "Sir," through sobs. Suddenly, all the children run toward him as if to hug him, but they pass right by, leaving him confused. The protagonist watches silently, unable to understand the children's reaction. The kids rush to the fallen large man and ask if he's okay, calling him, "Sir," from the doorway. Our hero watches them, unable to comprehend why they're helping the villain. With a hardened expression, he tries to understand the connection between that man and the children. Suddenly, the other kidnapper appears and asks why our hero has that look on his face. He replies that the one who should be surprised is him, given the entire situation. The villain comments that he's not an ordinary human, since he's still alive after having his head crushed. A memory appears, a mysterious elderly man, a foreigner, walking alone through the streets of Korea. He thinks that Koreans feel uncomfortable around him, and that although they're polite, they avoid him. He can see prejudice in their eyes. However, he remembers the first person who treated him like a normal human being, without judgment. That person was a doctor who diagnosed him with tonsillitis and prescribed a 3-day treatment. The doctor offered the treatment for free, and the foreigner thought it was because he had no money. The doctor clarified that it wasn't because of that, but because it must be sad to get sick far from home. With a smile, Dr. Kim invites him for coffee and tells him he's a good person. In another devastated place, the elderly man remembers that moment with sadness. On the ground, he sees Dr. Kim badly injured, holding a blood-stained axe. The old man approaches and tries to speak to the doctor, who is severely wounded. He tries to explain that to stop the zombies, they must sever the nerves in the neck. Even while injured, the doctor cries and says he can't do it, because they're still human. The old man is confused by the doctor's reaction in the midst of such absolute chaos. Eventually, they arrive at what appears to be the clinic. He and Dr. Kim close the door. Inside, a child watches them, not understanding what's happening. The clinic had become a refuge, and Dr. Kim took care of all the wounded and the needy. But the old man felt that something terrible was about to happen there. What worried him was a strange figure sitting among the refugees. A white-haired man with tattoos on his face and a suspicious smile. The man thanks them for the help, and the doctor says it's time for everyone to support one another. Wong realizes that the doctor's kindness prevented him from seeing the danger of accepting just anyone. Wong remains wary and can't take his eyes off the silent, mysterious man. He feels deeply uneasy about the situation. His instincts scream that something is wrong. His suspicion proves correct, as the clinic soon descends into total chaos. Amid the screams, Wong runs desperately as Dr. Kim lies wounded on the floor. Wong rushes to help an injured elderly man and asks what happened. The man reveals that the tattooed individual took the children and attacked all the elderly people in the refuge. Even while injured, Dr. Kim shouts for everyone to run, while another man screams for help. The elderly man also reveals that the attacker forced them to drink infected blood to transform them. Hearing this, Wong and the doctor are utterly horrified. Then the elderly man turns into a zombie, and all of the doctor's kindness turns against him. Dr. Kim cries in despair as he witnesses the tragic result of his good intentions. Wong watches his friend lying on the ground amid the chaos. With his face stained with blood, he understands that he must leave as soon as possible. Looking at the destroyed clinic, he knows it's no longer safe for anyone. To get what he wants, Wong places a bag of gold on a table. Then he approaches one of the group members and offers the gold to buy the children. Wong explains that this organization buys and sells anything as long as it brings profit. The man tells him to choose 2 children, and Wong tries to negotiate to take 1 more. The villain responds that children are becoming scarce, so their value only increases over time. Wong reveals that the members of the group don't know each other, so it was easy to infiltrate by getting a tattoo. With the plan in motion, he walks down a dark, narrow corridor searching for the children. Inside a cell, he finally finds a small, sad, frightened girl, Mina, our protagonist's daughter. Inside the cell, a boy recognizes him from the refuge and calls him, "Sir," with hope and tear-filled eyes. The boy repeats the call, completely desperate. Wong puts a finger to his lips, signaling him to stay quiet. The boy obeys, though his expression remains deeply sad. Wong points to the boy, choosing him. The villain comments that the child seemed to know him, and becomes suspicious. Wong gives a logical explanation, and the man accepts it without further questions. Inside the vehicle, the boy asks why he didn't take the woman who was with him in the cell. He explains that the girl had promised they would leave together. Wong promises he'll come back for her, and the boy reveals that his name is Gumina. With a serious expression, Wong says he understands and that he will keep his promise. That's when they choose the place where they'll hide. The doctor looks worried and asks if it's really necessary to go this far with the plan. Wong reflects that to survive, he must become more ruthless than the others. He remembers attacking anyone he considered dangerous, even innocents. He cries and says he couldn't gamble everyone's lives on mere possibilities and hope. Thus, Wong created a fortress of infected and began to distrust all humans. We return to the present, with our protagonist watching Wong from a distance. Surprised, he asks if he's protecting those children. Wong watches in silence. Then he remembers Sumin's words. Hearing them, the protagonist thinks there might still be a chance, though Wong remains distrustful. The protagonist mentions that he spoke with the boy about rescuing the girl named Mina from that place. Our hero fills with hope, but in Wong's eyes appears the image of little Mina locked inside the cell. Wong then asks what he wants with the girl named Mina. Before he can answer, someone shoots the protagonist, knocking him down with the impact of a shotgun blast. Wong is completely frozen in shock. Suddenly, someone appears and asks if he arrived at the most critical moment. It's the same white-haired man from Wong's memory. The man orders 2 of his henchmen to stay behind and tells the rest to search for the doctor and the children. Wong asks why he's there, and the villain calls him a benefactor and an important client. He says he sent his subordinates to welcome him, but since they didn't return, he decided to come personally. On the way, he saw that everyone had turned into infected and sarcastically wonders what the reason could be. Wong remains silent. Without hesitation, he asks why he kidnaps and sells innocent children. The villain laughs and says he was just joking with him. He explains that some do it for money, while others buy children for various superstitions. With a smile, he reveals that his boss wants to become the king of the new era by using children. The white-haired man mockingly asks if none of this seems fun to him. Suddenly, our protagonist rises from the ground. Wong notices, but it's already too late. Luani grabs one of the armed henchmen and uses his body to slam him into the ground, while Wong attacks the white-haired man with his axe, which the villain narrowly dodges. The other henchman quickly turns his shotgun toward the protagonist. Our hero braces himself, but the shot only grazes his face. He then places his hand on the henchman's face. The force of the impact sends him flying, his head slamming violently into the ground. Our protagonist tries to help Wong. Seeing this, the white-haired villain prepares himself as Wong attacks again. The man dodges and lifts Wong into the air. While spinning him, he snatches the weapon away and brutally slams him into the ground. Luani lunges again to grab him, but the villain anticipates the attack. Our hero stops when he feels a sharp blade pressed against his neck. The white-haired man praises his instincts for stopping in time. With a smile, he says that if those instincts had been just a bit better, he would have avoided it. Then the villain makes a deep cut across our hero's neck. He turns to Wong and begins to taunt him while Luani lies in pain. On the ground, Wong looks at the weapon and seems to recognize it. He remembers the moment he stole it. With a mocking smile, the villain sends his regards to the elderly people from the hospital. Then we see Sumin, who notices internal conflict among the kidnappers. He realizes that the brute is hiding the children from the other henchmen who have just arrived. The newcomers appear and greet Dr. Kim in a very suspicious manner. Soon after, they begin beating the doctor to force him to reveal the children's location. One of them grabs him tightly and demands to know where they are. Seeing this, Sumin thinks that, as expected, there's no law saying he has to fall with them. He decides to set his conscience aside and reveals that he knows where the children are. To buy time, he asks to be untied and assures them that he'll personally guide them there. The two henchmen look at each other and agree they have no choice but to untie him. They release Sumin. Once standing, one of the men asks if he can finally take them to the hideout. With a faint smile, Sumin reflects that, to survive, conscience is useless. The soldier points and tells them the way is over there. One of the men asks if he's sure, and Sumin assures him that he never lies to anyone. However, in his thoughts, he admits that his conscience weighs heavily, but he'll lie without hesitation. The tied-up idol screams for Sumin to untie her. He tells her not to worry, that this is a tactical retreat, and that he'll come back soon to free her. Meanwhile, the brute who was beaten earlier seems to be taking the situation very badly. He remains silent for a moment, thinking about what to do next amid the disaster. From his expression, it seems he's finally made a decision. Suddenly, the man stands up with a determined look, but his face quickly shifts to absolute terror, and he starts shaking his head in desperation. The scene changes, and we see Sumin guiding the two henchmen through a very dark corridor. One of them asks how much farther, and the soldier replies that they'll arrive soon. The same man warns him not to try anything strange or he'll shoot. When they reach the door, the henchman is surprised to hear noises behind it, confirming that there really are children inside. Without wasting time, one of the men pulls out a key and starts unlocking the door. The henchman complains that none of the keys work, and Sumin offers to go get the spare keys. At that moment, the soldier thinks this is his chance. His plan is to grab the weapon first, and then save the children. But suddenly, the sound of multiple gunshots completely shatters the silence of the hallway. Impatient, the henchman decides he doesn't have time to waste and fires directly at the door's lock. Seeing this, the brute runs over in desperation and screams at them not to open the door under any circumstances. With his face twisted in terror, he orders them to shut it as fast as possible. The man calmly replies that he already broke the lock, so it's too late. He doesn't understand the brute's reaction, while Sumin remains confused. The henchman then looks inside and panics, shouting that this is definitely not a child. With fear-filled eyes, he points his gun toward the strange figure in the darkness. Inside, they see a grotesque creature that looks like a giant, terrifying woman. The creature stares at them with a horrifying smile and completely empty, lifeless eyes. Suddenly, the place fills with many other strange creatures. As they look at them like prey, the creature's smile grows even more terrifying. Sensing the danger, Sumin doesn't waste a second and prepares to flee. Without hesitation, the horde of creatures charges straight at them.